Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the December 17 Water Commission meeting, and we'll call it to order. Can you please do the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Young?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Vice Chair Kilborn?
Here.
Chair Keller?
Here.
And Councilmember Sneddon? Here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hagmark, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Chair Keller, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment at this point?
Chair Keller, we do not have public comment at this point.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to item number 5, which is appointment of officers. So Mr. Hagmark.
Chair Keller, with Commissioner Kilborn stepping down, we wanted to bring this item to the commission to appoint a new vice chair that will serve starting tomorrow through July 15th, when we will once again revisit the chair, vice chair appointments. And so with that, commission can make a recommendation, would be helpful.
So can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Commissioner Davis as the vice chair to take my place.
And I'll second that.
Okay, great, thank you. May I have the roll call, please? The roll call.
Yes. Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
I have to think about it, but yes.
Vice Chair Kilborn?
Yes.
And Chair Keller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all. You realize July 15th is my birthday. Thanks a lot, guys.
Well, it's your birthday present.
That's all right.
Okay, well, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. So next is the consent items, and we only have the minutes from the 2 meetings. We had a meeting on November 12th and the meeting on November 19th. Any comments, or shall we go ahead?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So if we could have the roll call.
I believe we wanted to make a note on the November 19th Water Commission meeting minutes that Berlinda Blackburn was in attendance for that meeting. We forgot to include her. So we'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Young?
Yes, approved.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Kilborn?
Yes.
And Chair Keller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, moving right along. So number 7 is administrative items. And the first one we have is water supply update and annual water supply management report. So Mr. Hagmark.
Chair Keller, Dakota will be joining us here shortly. Probably moving pretty quick. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to this. Ms. Corey is going to walk us through a combination report. I should say this, we've kind of merged 2 things together. We have the annual water supply management report, which, as you know, is a backwards looking document. But we've also merged into this discussion today our forward looking discussion as well about where we see us going for the next 3 years and with our water supply. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Corey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagmark. Good morning, Chair Keller and Water Commissioners. My name is Dakota Corey, and I'm the Water Supply Analyst for the city. And as Mr. Hagmark explained, I am going to do a brief overview of our annual water supply management report, as well as provide an update on our water supply looking forward to the next 3 years. And I do want to mention, as Mr. Hagmark described, the annual water supply management report is a backwards looking document. So we'll be talking about how we used our water over the past water year, which was October 2019 through September 2020. And as you all know, in the last couple of months here in Water Commission, we've been discussing the work that we've been doing on the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan and defining things like new water demands moving forward. And so you'll find that this presentation is a little bit of a mix of the new from the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan and some of the old, because we are looking backwards with the annual water supply management report. And I'll point out where we're at when it's appropriate. Okay, so I apologize. There was a little delay there. Now I'm set on my right side. So for the outline of this report, we'll give a quick recap of water year 2020, including precipitation, supply and demand. We'll then look at each of our individual water supplies and where they stand coming out of water year 2020. From there, we'll move on to that 3-year look ahead, which is our water supply outlook. And then from there, I'll do a quick description of our annual water supply management report, including the purpose of the report and the groundwater findings that we'll be making in that report. So first, the water year 2020 recap. So water year 2020 was a average water year. You'll see the rainfall totals for water year 2020 for Gibraltar Reservoir, Lake Cachuma, and Santa Barbara at 93% of normal, 106% of normal, and 90% of normal, respectively. And notice this is based on the county's accounting, and they define their water year slightly differently than we do at the city. So theirs is from September through August, where ours is October through September. And this graph here just provides the same information, but in graphical format. It's got rainfall data dating back to 1980. You'll see the hash red mark or red line across the 100% mark. So that shows you where average is. And then anything that's a green year is above average. Anything that's a blue year is an average water year, which means plus or minus 20% of the average. And then the brown years are dry years. And so if you look on the right-hand side of the graph, you can see that as we know, we've been coming out of some very dry years. We did have a couple of years of above average rainfall, which helped us come out of the drought. And then this past water year was a average water year. And then this is a graph of how we plan to use our water supplies going into the water year versus how we actually use them. And so if you look at the bar on the left, you can see that we plan to use quite a bit of Cachuma water. We always plan, looking forward to the next water year, that we're going into another drought to be conservative. And so with that, we expect no new inflows into Gibraltar Reservoir or to Lake Cachuma. And so we anticipated that we wouldn't have much Gibraltar water available to us, and we would have relied pretty heavily on Lake Cachuma in the last water year. In reality, we did get plenty of rain to fill Gibraltar, and it did spill in March. And so the majority of our water use last year was actually provided by Gibraltar Reservoir, allowing us to store more water in Lake Cachuma. You'll also see that we produced more desal than anticipated. That's because there was a planned shutdown for some maintenance on the plant that didn't happen in that water year. It's going to happen soon. And so we had more production than we anticipated. Now, this is where one of our graphs is still kind of the old way of presenting information. So you can see the red bar on each, or red square on each bar, which represents conservation from pre-drought demands, or 2013. So we did plan for a 20% reduction in supplies. In actuality, our average water conservation was 27%. So you see that our demands weren't as high as we expected. This graph provides another look at demands. Again, this is sort of the old way of looking at things. You'll see that we have 2013 as our pre-drought baseline, which is the gray hash mark. We then plan for a 20% reduction. So you see that with the blue line. And then our actual water use each month for water year 2020 is the 12-month actual line, which is the red line. And so you can see on average, we were actually below our 20% planned reduction, with an average running conservation of 27% for the water year. As you know, there's several key supply planning issues with a handful of our supplies, and we've been providing pretty consistent updates on these issues, but I will just kind of summarize them in this slide. On Lake Cachuma, we're working to integrate the state water rights order into our planning. We're anticipating a biological opinion, and we're still working on the Cachuma contract. For the state water project, issues include the Delta conveyance, contract reassignment between the county, and then state water storage, which is a program that the Central Coast Water Authority is currently working on to identify more storage for our state water. As you know, we're also deeply entrenched in the work on the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan. So next, let's look at each of our individual water supplies and where they stand coming out of water year 2020. We'll start with Gibraltar Reservoir. As our plan and actual graph showed in a few slides ago, that was a big resource for us this year. So it did fill and spill, and we've been taking water from Gibraltar since last winter. We are still currently diverting from Gibraltar at about 8 acre-feet per day, but our storage is quite low. You can see that as of December 14th, there was 649 acre-feet stored in Gibraltar. And so the idea right now is we're heading into the rainy season, and we wanted to draw down that resource and utilize it. And now we're ready for it to rain and fill back up again. So that's what we're all hoping for. You can see that Gibraltar water was 39% of our total supply in water year 2020. So it was quite significant. Cachuma Reservoir is another big storage opportunity for us in the area. As you know, it's a shared resource. So there's city water in the lake. There's also water for other Cachuma member units, as well as downstream users and environmental releases for fish. So currently storage as of December 14th was just over 125,000 acre-feet, or 65% of the reservoir's total capacity. Of that, the city's stored Cachuma supply is just over 28,000 acre-feet, which is approximately 2.5 years of total demand for the city. So we have quite a bit of water stored in Lake Cachuma right now. The current water year that we've just begun for water year 2021, we did get 100% allocation. The city's allocation on Lake Cachuma is 8,277 acre-feet, and that's included in that approximately 28,000 acre-feet mentioned on this slide. Question, Mr. Hagmark, or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add the significance of this right now. So if we were to follow some of the guidelines that the Bureau is putting out there to utilize all of the water, our carryover water that we are given every year, this reservoir right now would be below 100,000 acre-feet just if you took the city's water out of here. So I think on many levels we're in agreement that what the Bureau is proposing is disastrous, but I just wanted to point out right now the significance of that. And at 100,000 acre-feet, I think that's when we start talking about, the significance of entering another drought. I mean, that's 100,000 is a threshold that we closely monitor, and just want to point out how quickly we can get in there. The reason that we have right now that volume of water in Cachuma is because of desal. It has that, in combination with conservation and recycled water, has allowed the city to bank this water in here. And so if we do head into another drought, as Ms. Corey is going to get into, we're in a good position. And we've kind of strategically and set ourselves up for success in that way. So I just wanted to add that here.
Just a quick question, and then I'll have Commissioner Davis. So, what's the expectation normally from the Bureau as to how much water we would be taking out on a regular year? What do they consider to be our regular consumption or our required consumption, and what would be the carryover that we normally? Well, not the carryover, but at what point does it consider to be carryover?
Ms. Corey, you want to take that question?
Sure. So carryover is defined by the water year. So any water from our allocation that we don't use in a given water year is then carried over to the next year. The Bureau honestly hasn't been super clear on what they think is an appropriate amount. One suggestion was no more than 25% of our allocation.
1 year's allocation, yeah.
What's
1 year's
our
allocation,
annual
so
allocation?
it's 8,277 acre-feet.
Wow, that's a lot of water. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's been policy or past policy or past procedure has been that we have carried over more than that. The 25% threshold is really low. On average, we usually had, somewhere like from 11 to 15,000 acre-feet of carryover. So we do have more than we've had in the past, but we don't have clear direction from the Bureau on what they think is appropriate right now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Davis?
So my question, basically that was part of my question. The second part was, if in fact we have that much stored and it quickly somehow went down below 100,000 acre feet and they started looking at reduced allocations, what's the current policy relative to our access then to the quote unquote stored water?
I just don't understand it. As far as the water, this water right here that the city has, that we have access to. We have access to it.
Go back to when you were framing it, right? How quickly you can get down to under 100,000 acre feet.
Right.
And after 100,000 acre feet, as I understand it now, they have turned to voluntary reductions on the take. And my question was, we got almost 30,000 acre feet, right? You get down under 100,000 acre feet. How will they treat that 30,000? Because now it will be almost a third of basically what's in the lake total, right? So how do they treat our stored water when in fact it starts to get down into that under 100,000 acre feet threshold?
Well, I can base it on how it's been treated before, which is it's the city's discretion as to how we go about using that.
Okay.
I guess what do you want to call it? A gentleman's agreement or a general understanding is that once the reservoir falls below 100,000, and we followed this, but it's that we usually reduce our usage of Kachuma by 20%. So on annual allocation from Kachuma, we would reduce our usage from by 20%.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Okay, but our quote unquote rights, quote unquote, to the stored water is not jeopardized once
Right.
you get under 100,000 acre feet. Okay, great.
That is
That answers
correct.
my question.
Commissioner Young, are you still? No. Okay. Well, maybe what we should negotiate is we're willing to do away with the carryover if they can give us water when there's no water available. Then, that we're happy to do that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense either way, no? So. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So moving on, not moving on quite yet. This is just a graphical representation of storage in Kachuma. The green line represents the time since Kachuma last spilled, which was in 2011 to present. And then the black line is the last drought previous to the most recent one, so 1986 to 1993. And so it really just shows that our storage in Kachuma really tracked similarly the 1986 to 1993 drought, and then we even dropped below that. We've had a couple of years, year 6 after the drought and year 8, where we did receive some rainfall and the reservoir started to fill back up. It never really got beyond like 75% of full. And now you can see that there was some drawdowns this summer, but we're above 100,000 and below 150,000 storage. Another comment, Mr.
Yeah.
Hagmark?
Just wanting to point out the gravity that we are 10 years out from the last time Kachuma spilled. That's remarkable to think about. This is a reservoir that historically has spilled on average about every 3 years. I don't think it's ever gone this long of a period without spilling. So hopefully this will be the year that we see a change, but we're certainly off to a slow start. But I think there just has to be some recognition. That's a long stretch for that reservoir to go without spilling.
Commissioner Young?
Thank you, Chair Keller. Out of curiosity, how frequently does Gibraltar spill? Is that almost every year, or do we have years where it doesn't?
I can try to answer that question. I don't have good numbers in front of me. We basically need average rainfall for Gibraltar to fill and spill. And so in the last several years, we have had it fill and spill. It was a period of time, I think about from 2014 through 2016, where it did not because the drought was severe enough. But typically it's, it's such a small storage area at this point, we just need average rainfall for it to fill and spill.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so moving on to another source of supply for the city, that's our imported water, which comes from the State Water Project. We didn't use any State Water Project water in water year 2020. It wasn't needed because we had plenty of Gibraltar and Kachuma water. We did participate in our exchange agreement. So we exchanged 387 acre feet of state water with ID1, which then came back to us in the form of credit in Kachuma, or allocation in Kachuma. Currently, the state water project going into 2021 is only 10% of our max table A amount. So the city's max table A amount is 3,300 acre feet, which means a 10% allocation is 330 acre feet for the city. We do have some carryover state water project water stored in San Luis Reservoir. It's approximately 960 acre feet. So if you add our 330 acre feet of new allocation, we're about 1,300 acre feet of state water project water. The city does still have some water debt on the state water project. During the drought, we made supplemental water purchases, and some of those agreements required us to return water when we had it in the future. And so that debt sits at 2,000 acre feet. And we hope to pay it back as soon as we get a significant allocation on the state water project. Unfortunately, the allocation only went to 20% last year, and right now it's sitting at 10. So we just haven't gotten much water out of that source in the last couple of years. And that's mainly because snowpack has been dry in the Sierras. Looking at our groundwater, we continue currently we're resting our basins, which means we're not using our groundwater supplies. We did pump them pretty heavily in the last drought, and we're waiting for them to naturally recharge and for seawater intrusion in storage unit 1 to dissipate. And so we do continue to monitor seawater intrusion and the water levels in each of our basins on a monthly basis. We do expect full recovery of the basins to take anywhere from 5 to 10 years based on patterns from the last drought. And I included this graph on the right. There's a big red circle on the right-hand side of the graph, and that really shows the water level in the Foothill Basin since the end of the drought, since we turned off our production wells. And you can see that there is an upward trend in each of these monitoring wells, but we're nowhere near full pre-drought demands in the early 2000s. So they are showing trends of recovery, but they're not there yet. Desalination continues to operate in its full production. For water year 2020, we produced 2,749 acre feet of desalinated water. And as Mr. Hagmark mentioned earlier, desal has played an extremely important role in drought recovery and also is helping us with drought preparedness. So because we're using desal, we're able to rest our groundwater basins and let them recover. And we're building up carryover water in Lake Kachuma, which will help us going into a next dry period. Next. Recycled water plant is also currently online and meeting customer demands. We've done some work on the plant in the last couple of years, and it's operating consistently. We have to blend very little potable blend water in the system now. It only occurs when the plant is down for maintenance. And so over water year 2020, we only used 31 acre feet of potable blend water in the recycled water system. The next item on our agenda today at Water Commission is to talk about a recycled water agreement that we'd like to enter into with La Cumbre Mutual Water Company, where they'd be purchasing up to 100 acre feet per year of recycled water from the city. Question?
Yes, quick question.
Keller?
So there's been a comment that we have excess recycled water and that some of that gets sent to the ocean. Is that the case, or we don't produce when we don't have demand for it?
Yeah, I'd like to bring back a graph to discuss this in more detail next month. But basically, we have about 250,000 gallons per day of capacity left during peak summer demands. So recycled water is used on landscape, and so demands are highest in the summer. And so at that peak time, we're maximizing our water recycled water availability pretty well. In the winter months when demand is low, there's obviously recycled water that doesn't have any place to go. I think where some of the confusion is coming in the public discussion, though, is we do produce quite a bit more wastewater that isn't tertiary treated through the recycled water plant. And so there's additional opportunity for recycled water there, but obviously that would be a big capital investment to upgrade the plant's capacity. Do you have something to add, Mr. Hagmark?
I was just going to add, we're going to get into that in the next presentation. We're going to show kind of the available recycled water that we do have. But I think it's a good distinction. It's one of the things that I know early on in taking on this position, I kind of struggled with understanding kind of the challenges of inland wastewater treatment versus coastal. So inland wastewater treatment plants are required to treat to tertiary before releasing into the environment. So
Mhm.
they are already treating to the quality of our recycled water, and that's a requirement of inland dischargers. When you
Mhm.
come to coastal dischargers, we are allowed to treat to secondary treatment, which is what we do. And so we're only taking water that we could use in our recycled water system and treating that to tertiary. And in our next presentation, we'll kind of get into that available capacity and again, kind of show that peaking that really happens in the summer that kind of drives this. I mean, for all intents and purposes, our facility right here, a significant portion of this is overbuilt to handle 2 months out of the year. The rest of the year, we have significant excess capacity and no demand.
But you can tailor down the amount of water that you pass through it, so you don't have to treat if you don't need to, right?
That is correct. That is correct. There's the savings in chemical and electrical that we have here, but you still have a lot of the same maintenance needs
Yeah,
despite
sure.
running less water. You have staffing, all that goes along with it. And anyway, we can certainly get into that. And that's going to be a good conversation for the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan discussion next month. But we will get into the capacity issue today when we talk about the LACUMBA agreement.
Okay, thank you.
And as you know, at the city, we also consider water conservation a source of supply. Compared to 2013 pre-drought demands, as I mentioned earlier, our water conservation was 27%. So our customers continue to conserve and really embrace an ethic of conservation within the community. Some of this conservation may be permanent when we're looking at pre-drought demands. People have made permanent changes to their water use. Maybe they've changed out their high water use turf for a water efficient landscape, or they've upgraded to water saving fixtures. And those savings will go on into the future, reducing demand. And that's why we've really explored demand in our Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan and really are looking to define a new normal for demand moving forward. So next, let's talk about the water supply outlook. As a reminder, when we do this 3-year look ahead, we're always planning for the worst case scenario. So we assume that we're going right back into a drought, which means that there's no additional inflows to Lake Cachuma or Gibraltar Reservoir. Under those assumptions, we can make sure that we're prepared in case that scenario comes true, in case we are back in a drought. So under the assumptions I used for the plan this year, we do know we have 100% Cachuma allocation for water year 2021. That's already been decided. But looking ahead to 2022 and 2023, if we were in dry conditions, we assumed a 50% Cachuma allocation for each of those years. We also assumed only a 35% allocation for the state water project, again, assuming dry conditions throughout the state. Desal production would be consistent at 240 acre feet per month. And in terms of demands, I set the demands at 25% of pre-drought demands. And again, this is where we're kind of toying with this new normal versus the old way of looking at things. So I did check our demand projections from the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan against that assumption of 25% pre-drought demands, and they match up pretty nicely. So I think that that's an appropriate projection moving forward. So then this is the result of that planning effort. Just to orient you on this slide, I know you've seen it before. We start with 2012 data. So 2012 is the first year after Cachuma spilled in 2011. And we carry through all the way out to water year 2023. So we're projecting use in the years 2021 through 2023. And then we have actual use from 2012 to 2019. So you can see as you move left to right on the graph that we started out in 2012 relying on quite a bit of our Cachuma water. We might not have recognized that we were in a drought yet. Cachuma had just spilled. And then as the years went on and there were no inflows to Lake Cachuma, you can see we started to diversify the supplies we used. We used our groundwater as we do during droughts. We used a lot more state water project water and purchased water on the state water project market. And then we brought desal online in 2017. There's just a little bit there. And then 2018, it was more full production. And then we started to kind of climb back out of the drought. And some things I want to orientate you with here, if you look at Water year 2020, that's the usage for this past water year. So we relied again heavily on Gibraltar, Little Cachuma, and our desal water, and recycled water is consistent there across those years. And then if you move into water year 2022, this is when we'll see the water sales agreement with Montecito Water District and the recycled water sales agreement with La Cumbre Mutual Water Company come online. And so that increase in demand isn't an expected increase in our current city customers. It's adding those two new agreements. So essentially they become new customers and we see our demand go up. And we are planning to make sure that we can meet the requirements of those agreements. And so what you see here is in the future 3 years, we do have plenty of water to meet our demands. We would rely mostly on Cachuma water. We're not anticipating a lot of Gibraltar water because again, we're assuming no new inflows. The desal plant would continue to operate. And then in water year 2023, we thought that if we were 3 years into more dry weather, we would start planning to use our resources as if we were a drought again. So we would turn our groundwater on to meet peak summer demands. There's a little bit of groundwater there, and we would use our state water project water so that we could save our Cachuma resources. One thing that I want to point out here is even with the resources used as they're outlined here, we would still have 11,500 acre feet of Cachuma water in storage going into water year 2024 and 1,700 acre feet of state water project water. So we're really in a good position right now. We've done a great job managing our water supplies post-drought. And even if we experience 3 dry years, we're in good position to meet demands. So this slide kind of just summarizes those conclusions. We don't anticipate having to expand desal through water year 2023. We don't anticipate having to make any supplemental water purchases. If the drought conditions continued for the next 3 years, we may start using some of our state water project water to conserve Cachuma water. But regardless, the city does have sufficient supplies to meet the demands, both for the city and the 2 water sales agreements with Montecito Water District and La Cumbre Mutual Water Company. We do recommend that we stay within our current stage 1 water supply condition. And this is because our groundwater basins are still depleted. And this allows them to recover. So we would like to revisit that water supply condition in the spring of 2021 after the rainy season when we see what we get this year. Questions?
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, thank you. Just for my own edification or reminder, we're not allowed to store state water in Cachuma, but we could use the state water in lieu of our Cachuma water since we can store that. Do I have that correct?
Commissioner Davis, that is correct. We can store our state water in San Luis Reservoir, and we do have water sitting there now, but that's there's more a likelihood of a spill there, so it's not wise to store too much there. And you're right, we could deliver our state water to Lake Cachuma and take that in lieu of Cachuma water to allow more storage.
Commissioner Young?
Yeah, I'm curious about what happens if we have below average rainfall over a 10+ year period of time. I mean, what is that kind of worst case scenario? And I ask that because of that article that I found yesterday and I shared with the chair and I think Joshua and the other commissioners, that some scientists think we may be headed into a prolonged drought in the Pacific Southwest. It's just a prediction. Don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm curious, in a worst case scenario with 10, 15+ years of below average rainfall, what happens?
Commissioner Young, that's a really great question. And that's exactly why we're currently updating our long-term water supply planning with our enhanced urban water management plan. We did a risk and uncertainty evaluation, and one of the risks that we looked at was actually a mega drought. So what if we did have this 10, 15-year drought? How would we respond? And really, the short answer is that if we adopt our adaptive implementation plan that's outlined in the enhanced urban water management plan, it would help us understand how to move through the different phases and how to respond. And so currently, the information in the enhanced urban water management plan shows that our best performing new supply would be expanding the desal plant to meet demands. And then from there, we have other opportunities as well, including asking our customers to conserve under the extraordinary conservation if needed. We also have state water project water available to us potentially to purchase on the open market. Although that market seems to be changing, so we don't want to put all of our eggs in that basket. I don't know if you have anything to add, Mr. Hagmark?
No, you think you did a wonderful job.
So of course, there may not be any more state water available also. If we have a prolonged drought, it could hit, further up north, and that might not be available. In this scenario, we're just contemplating, what about increasing recycled water production? Does that factor in?
I think the challenge of producing more recycled water gets back to like who would use that? I mean, I think that's the challenge. There needs to be some significant shifts in the way the state looks at it, because I think the risks associated with recycled water are incredibly low. But as you know, working with the regional board, they are risk averse. So we currently do not have residential customers tied to the recycled water system. They're all commercial because they all require to be trained and certified every year on how to use recycled water, when to use it. And so it does have some limitations. So for the most part, we've and that's one of the things that's coming out of the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan, is we're going to take the study that we completed in 2009. We've taken and connected a lot of the properties that were identified as potential in there, but we don't see that there is a significant number of recycled water landscape potentials left in the community. There isn't thousands of acre feet of recycled water demand out there. And so I think that's the challenge. And I think that's why there's been this healthy conversation about the future of potable reuse, in which there is a good demand for that. So I think that's what we'll be working through. And I think that'll be a helpful, I'm happy to share with you that 2009 study and the properties that I identified. But that's one of the recommendations, is to update that and make sure and that there isn't any large outstanding property that we may want to pursue getting connected.
So
go ahead, Commissioner.
So then this discussion then is dependent upon finding large parcels that could use a lot of water, and not going into neighborhoods where you'd have to hook up to individual households. You don't see that there's just enough demand for that, and it would be too costly.
I'm saying right now, the state board, DDW, does not allow us to connect small residential customers, because our pipelines go by a lot of residential properties.
Right.
But that is not a risk they are interested in taking on, is having individuals try and manage recycled water in a safe way.
So it sounds like then the most logical place that this is going to go is to potable reuse at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At some point, yeah.
At some point.
There's a year-round demand for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important point is that recycled water, there's a limited capacity, in terms of demand, there's a limited amount that's out there. Do we know roughly what that is, Mr. Hagmark? How much are we talking about in the city boundary? Is it 500 acre feet or?
Somewhere between probably 100 and 200 potentially may be available. And again, the big challenge with that is the peaking that goes on in the summer. I think I've used this analogy before. Our recycled water plant that we built is actually capable of producing the same volume, approximately the same volume as our desal plant. But because there isn't a year-round demand for recycled water, its capacity looks like roughly 1,400 acre feet a year, when desal can produce 3,000. And that's really even though the facilities are comparably sized, the best we could hope to get out of recycled water is somewhere around 1,400 acre feet a year.
Right, right, right. Okay, so there's the issue of, there's not much additional demand. There's the timing issue. It's not one-to-one because recycled water cannot be used for potable uses. So that, that limits what we can do with that. And potable reuse, I mean, I think, frankly, we're talking about, at least, I would say 7 to 10 years before we get to the point where we feel between the technology and the regulatory process and everything that we can go to that. So I think we need to sort of be realistic about that not being something happening anytime soon. No?
If it helps too, one of the things I would consider the San Diego Water Authority probably the leading agency in potable reuse. Like they are the ones pushing the hardest and they have the money to do it. So they have multiple incentives. They're trying to curtail their wastewater discharges because I believe they only treat to like primary. They have some basic, they have some
primary, they have an agreement, yeah.
Right. They have literally billions of dollars in upgrades they need to make to their wastewater treatment plant. And so rather than do that, they're trying to really push this. On their website, their goal is to try and get to potable reuse by 2035. So I consider them kind of, that regulators have actually moved down to San Diego to work side by side with engineers and their operators to try and figure out how to do it. And what's most significant about that too is that what they're trying to do is called surface water augmentation, which is exactly what we have identified as the most likely to be successful potable reuse project, which is to treat it to a level of drinking water, put it into our surface raw water, surface reservoir at Laurel, and then treat it again at Cater. So you have multiple barriers. You have the treatment process, you have 5 miles of pipe to Laurel, you have blending in Laurel, and then treatment as a surface water. You have multiple layers of protection of the public's drinking water supply. And that's what San Diego Water Authority is working on down there, I think with Miramar Reservoir. So they're working on that, and their best hopes right now are 2035. And then I feel like they're the leaders right now in that effort in California.
Mm-hmm. So there's two other, we're going to be talking about La Cumbre in a little bit, La Cumbre Mutual. There's two other opportunities in terms of that. One is, we've been discussing the cemetery, which is not right now within city property bounds, but that would be one option to think about, and whether we should take a more proactive view and is it worth it? I would at least do a quick analysis to see whether it's worth it to try to do that. And any others like that. And then the other, is there any opportunity for groundwater recharge using the recycled water? What are the limitations in terms of the state regulations? Because I know that's a challenge, but if we could do some recharge with that, that'd be an opportunity. No? And we could do that during the winter, so that'd be great.
So we did study that, and that was captured in our 2017 potable reuse feasibility study. And given the complexities of the city's groundwater basins, it did not come out as a feasible option. And I'd be happy to pull that up and get into more details than that and as to what the issues were. But it did not, was not seen as a viable step. And then as for the specific, let me be clear on this. This is the Montecito Cemetery. So this is located just outside of the city limits. It's behind the Clark Estate. So over there by Butterfly Beach that continues to come up. And I've made it very clear what Montecito needs to do. If they want to have this conversation, they need to send a letter to our city administrator and city council requesting permission for staff to work on that. I think I'm more than happy to sit down and really get into that. But I think without them asking for that, it's an overstep on our part. They need to initiate that discussion. And my understanding, just to put it in perspective, I believe the cemeteries, I read that I think it uses about 20 acre feet of water a year to kind of put that into perspective. So per year. So, we're talking about potentially selling 100 to La Cumbre. This agreement to get water to the cemetery, maybe 20, maybe somewhere in that range.
So I before we move on to Commissioner Davis' question, I do think that we should at least in a future meeting of the Water Commission talk about the possibility of groundwater recharge and what are those barriers that we see and, think about what could we do, because that would be a way for us to use that water during the winter, and that would give us a good opportunity. But I'd like to understand the barriers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Commissioner
and
David?
I think, Chair, one thing on that is, we're still trying to get a permit from the regional board to put drinking water into our groundwater basin. And so that has proven to be significantly challenging with all the limitations on, the groundwater plan.
Yeah.
So we're working on that. I do have hopes that we will have something hopefully within the next year on that, but that's just to give you a little idea about just the challenges of some of those paths. So.
But just to understand those challenges and think, what could we do, and is it worth it for us to have a plan for that? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Davis?
Thank you. Two things. One, a statement. With Commissioner Kilborn going off, I'll be the old timer here on the board. There a number of these studies, Joshua, we talked about previously, and it would be good to come back and essentially refresh all the new members, and we're going to have another member, where it refresh basically the findings of all those previous reports, because again, some of us remember those things, others weren't here when we did that. And again, we're spending a lot of time on a subject matter which we should move through this agenda. Just real quickly, what's Montecito Sanitary District doing relative to reclaim? They're across the street from the cemetery.
They actually have a pilot project going right now, and they're looking at putting something together to serve the cemetery. So they're right adjacent to the cemetery. They're probably closer to that.
I'm assuming basically that everybody's waiting to see what happens there to some degree. Anyway, good.
Okay. Commissioner Kilburn? Vice Chair Kilburn?
Continue.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
All right, so now we'll just do a brief overview of the findings from our annual water supply management report. The report was provided in your commission packet today, and it is available on our city website at santabarbaraca.gov/water if the public would like to review it. And it's a pretty comprehensive document that really summarizes how we used our water supplies over the last water year. But today we're really going to look at some of the groundwater findings. So first, the purpose of the annual water supply management report is, as I said, to summarize water supplies used in water year 2020. It is a requirement from when we joined the State Water Project, the EIR, the Environmental Impact Report, required that we make a finding each year that our groundwater basins are in long-term balance. And so we produced the report to make that finding. We'll take it to council on January 26th. I believe it's going as a consent item so that they can adopt that recommendation and findings. So because we do need to make those findings, I just want to talk more about groundwater. As you know, it's our policy in the city to conjunctively use our groundwater supplies with our other supplies. And so what that means is when we have plenty of surface water available, when the years are wet, we use those and we rest our groundwater basins. But then as surface water dries up and becomes less available, we can tap into those groundwater supplies. And it really is a drought supply for the city, as we saw in the most recent drought. It also can serve as an emergency supply during a catastrophic event. For example, if there was an earthquake in Tecolote Tunnel or Mission Tunnel that bring water down from the Santa Ynez River were to collapse, it's a local available supply for us, as is desal. So this is just a map of our groundwater basins. I'll first direct your attention to the upper left-hand corner. That's our Foothill groundwater basin. There's two primary basins that the city produces water from. The Foothill Basin is located in the upper State Street area of Santa Barbara, and then in the foothills all the way over towards Mission Canyon. So the groundwater basin boundaries on this map are kind of that navy blue thick line. Just to orient you a little more, the pink hashed line is the city boundaries. The orange line that cuts diagonally through the slide is Highway 101. And then Storage Unit 1 is our other primary groundwater basin. You can see that it underlies downtown Santa Barbara. We have production wells there demarked by blue squares. And then finally, there's Storage Unit 3, which is in the lower left-hand corner of the map. And the groundwater quality in Storage Unit 3 is poor, so we actually use that to augment our recycled water system if needed, but it doesn't go into the potable system. Question, Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, Val Verde well you show there.
Yes.
That's my house. You're actually Valverde's on the other side of Los
Oh, the square not so true confession. We need to update this map.
No kidding.
And it's
Hey,
work is underway to make a
minor
better
work,
map.
but I loved it because it's
Yeah.
essentially that's where I
Right
live.
there. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so we'll just go through each of our basins really quickly. As you remember, the Foothill Basin is the one that's in the Upper State Street area and in the foothills of the city. There are several pumpers in the basin besides the city. Some of the notable ones are La Cumbre Mutual Water Company and the Lincolnwood neighborhood. So when we look at our yield from that basin, we just consider what's available to the city and, you know, minus what is available to the other pumpers. And so that yield is estimated to be about 8,000 acre feet. In water year 2020, we did not produce any water from the Foothill Basin. We are resting it to let the groundwater levels come up. We do, if we went into another drought, think we have some remaining yield left in that basin, about 3,800 acre feet. And currently water levels are about the same as the early 90s as we were coming out of the last drought. Commissioner Young?
Thank you. Do the other pumpers affect the levels in the basin significantly?
So there is an agreement between the city and La Cumbre Mutual Water Company that caps the amount of water that they can pump each year at 300 acre feet per year. And we have a really good working relationship with them. So we share data back and forth, and I have graphs of their pumping. And then the other pumpers are quite small, you know, it's just a neighborhood. So there is some effect, but the city is by far the biggest and most influential pumper in the basin.
We could actually see that when you show the groundwater elevations, that when the city's pumping, it really goes down. And now that the city's not pumping, the other pumpers are really tiny compared to the city. So, yeah.
Correct. Okay. All right, and then storage unit 2 is our groundwater basin that underlies the downtown area. It's a larger basin and the city is the primary pumper. So the yield estimated from that basin is 16,000 acre feet. And I do want to note that one of the recommendations that's coming out of the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan is to work with USGS further to better define sustainable yields for each of these basins. So that's something that we'll be doing moving forward. In water year 2020, storage unit 1, we produced 22 acre feet. So that wasn't actually because we needed supplies, that was because we were maintaining wells and we wanted that water to go somewhere beneficial. So it went into the distribution system. So we do have some usage once in a while when we're doing maintenance. We do think there's quite a bit of water left in the basin. Estimated remaining yield is over 10,000 acre feet. And the issue with storage unit 1, it actually, in terms of groundwater level, recovers quite quickly. The levels are low. In fact, we actually have some artesianing wells right now in storage unit 1, but the problem is seawater intrusion. So if you recall back to the map, one of the boundaries of storage unit 1 is actually the Pacific Ocean. And so as our inland production wells start pulling water up out of the ground, it pulls that seawater inland. And we're going to look at some specific maps of that here in just a second, but I'll take questions first.
Commissioner Young?
Thank you, Chair. So your first bullet point, 16,090 acre feet, multi-year drought yield. What really does that mean? Could you break that down for me?
Yeah, that's a good question. Basically, we look at the total storage in the basin and we look at our pumping capacity each year. And so our pumping capacity based on how big our wells are and what they can produce is actually the limiting factor. And from the top of my head, I believe that's about 3,500 acre feet per year. And so to deplete that 16,000, it's a multi-year process. But if we really needed water from our groundwater basins, we have about 5 years worth of available water based on our pumping capacity from our wells.
So the 16,000 figure is basically assuming that it was at full capacity. And if we had to draw the whole thing down over time, it would take multiple years, but that's how much would be available.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I think wanted to add a few details to that. So the if you were to assume, let's just say, for example, we went after all 16,000 there, we're talking about bringing seawater in probably to the 101, and then you'd be talking decades to push that salts, the chlorides back. So it would be decades before you would have that 16,000 acre feet of capacity back. So I want to be careful when we talk about it, because I think our 2 storage unit basins are just so, they're almost like the extremes, right? Storage unit 1 is the one that, as Ms. Corey said, it recharges fairly quick, but it takes a long time to push the seawater intrusion back. And so that is an important aspect of it. As you saw with kind of the numbers, the levels in the basin already jump up pretty quick, but we haven't seen the salts drop down. So we'll get into that. And then of course, Foothill is more of just a chalice. We're filling that up. It's slowly filling up. And it's more of your, if you want to say there's more of a traditional groundwater basin, that's more of how that looks. But I think we talk about that 16,000. I get kind of anxious because I'm like, I think if you went after all 16,000, we're talking about running the basin and really taking it out of commission for decades. So I'd be hesitant to say that and say that really is what we have available to us.
And I understand that it's a theoretical number.
Yes.
It's a theoretical number.
Yeah.
Another question, if I could. I know in the Central Valley, over the decades and decades, there's been subsidence of the ground surface itself and a loss of groundwater basin capacity, storage capacity. Do we have the same geology here on the South Coast?
We do not. We are very fortunate. The structure that we have of both Storage Unit 1 and Foothill is just very different, and we don't seem to get that soil compaction and permanent loss of capacity. So to that end, that's the one silver lining to the geology that we have locally.
Thank you.
I do want to say this too, this comes up a lot, concerns about sea level rise. We did talk with folks from USGS. We do not anticipate sea level rise having a major impact on our groundwater basins. The minute change in head that we're talking about in the ocean will not significantly impact the groundwater basins and the geology that we have. I mean, the current groundwater basins already come out well below sea level. So a minute change that we're talking about, 3 feet, 6 feet, even 10 feet is not significant, will not have a significant impact on our groundwater basins.
That's an important clarification. Thank you. Okay, so let's explore the seawater intrusion just a little bit. I'm gonna work with 3 different chloride monitoring wells. We have several throughout the basin. We partner with the USGS, who reads the monitoring wells each month and maintains the database. So you can see the 3 big red arrows are pointing at little yellow dots. Those are each monitoring wells. And if we look to the arrow furthest to the right, that is 23F2. So that's a monitoring well that's just on the other side of Cabrillo Boulevard, so very close to the ocean. And then if we move inland to the middle red arrow, that's 23E5, which is relatively close to El Estero Water Resources Center. And then we've got a 3rd well that we like to monitor, which is on the opposite side of the 101, further inland, which is 22A2. And I do want to point out the little black triangles further to the left. Those are our production wells. And so we really look at well 22A2, the one that's inland of the 101, as kind of our canary in the coal mine. If we started to see seawater intrusion that far inwards, we'd really be needing to make some decisions to protect our production wells. Commissioner Davis.
You know what I'm going to say? Is that the El Estero Resource Center?
I believe so.
No, look at Laguna Channel. You're on the other side.
Ah, you're right. Okay.
Sorry, I'm the
Full
map guy.
disclosure, I didn't actually add that to the map, but thank you, and we will make that correction as well.
But if this goes up to council, it'd be good when it goes out to the public that we basically, again, if I see something, I'll at least help you out by pointing it out. So sorry about that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to be accurate, and we will make that change. Okay, so let's start with the 23F4 well, which was the well located close to the ocean. And if you look at the graph on the right-hand side of the slide, we have chloride levels back to 1986 through the present time. And so back in 1986, we were coming out of the last drought, and you can see that there were quite high chloride levels at 12,000 milligrams per liter. And then over time, you can see it took a 5 to 6 year period. Those chloride levels dropped as we rested the basins after the drought and let them recover. And then beginning in 2014-ish, you see the chlorides start to creep up again. They never got as high as they were in the last drought. They're hovering around 10,000 milligrams per liter. And you can see at this well, which is located closest to the ocean, they've leveled off. They're not increasing anymore, but we're not quite seeing that recovery quite yet. Something to add, Mr. Hagmark?
I was just going to give a baseline. Seawater, for those who don't know, is 30,000 milligrams per liter. That's typical seawater. So it gives you kind of an idea there. That's a pretty high concentration at that point. So anyway, just wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you. So let's move further inland. We're going to jump over to well 23E5. So this is about halfway between the ocean and the 101 freeway. And I want to point out in the graph on the right that the y-axis is the same scale as in the previous slide. And so that you can see as we move inland further, the level of seawater intrusion doesn't get nearly as high. And so again, in the previous drought in the late 80s, early 90s, chloride levels were hovering around 4,000 milligrams per liter. They tapered back down to, barely registrable. I think they're just a couple hundred milligrams per liter there in the early 2000s. And then as we started pumping the basin, 2014, 2015, you see them start to creep back up, but they don't even reach 2,000 milligrams per liter. And here, we just have a few data points that are starting to show it, but we are starting to see a downward trend. So that seawater is getting pushed back out, and we're seeing those chloride levels start to drop at this well. And then moving one more well inland. So now we're at 22A2, which is on the opposite side of the 101 from the freeway. And what's great to note here is that we really see no signs of seawater intrusion. We didn't see them in the 1980s, 1990s drought, and we didn't see an increase in the most recent drought. And so in terms of using this as a canary in the coal mine, we really don't have to be concerned about seawater intrusion in terms of how it would affect our production wells. But we will continue to monitor these wells and watch that plume of seawater get pushed back out as we continue to let our basins rest. Commissioner Young?
Thank you. I should know the answer to this. I can't recall it immediately, but what is our basin plan limit for chloride?
I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. Mr. Hagmark, do you know the answer? We don't have a groundwater management plan.
I don't, but I can say that I did look at it recently, and I remember that Mission Creek did not meet the basin plan requirement. So the water that naturally flows in our creeks does not meet the chloride concentrations of the basin plan.
Okay.
And that's what ended up getting regional board staff's attention when we could show native creeks, even at the headwaters, were not meeting the basin plan requirements. And that seemed to be kind of hopefully a major trigger for them to bring it, I think, to the regional board for more conversation about potentially some type of path in which we could start injecting groundwater or start injecting our surface water from the San Ynez River, which it has similar chlorides in it, into the groundwater basin.
So I think it's 500 parts per million.
That sounds right. It's somewhere in that area, yeah.
So it's interesting that this particular chloride monitoring well levels at least satisfy and exceed the requirements for the chloride basin plan limit. And it's the surface water that is higher in salt than our groundwater.
I don't know that. I think the groundwater basin, the water that we're pumping out, has similar chlorides to the surface water that we find in our creeks. I just think that the basin plan had something different in mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chair Keller, did you have a question? Okay. We're almost finished. So just a summary of storage unit number 3. Remember, this was the small basin in the lower left-hand corner of the groundwater basin map. As I mentioned earlier, it does have difficult water quality. There are a few other pumpers in that basin. The estimated yield to the city is about 200 acre-feet per year. And we have used that water in the past, but as I mentioned, we use it as a supplement to our recycled water non-potable system. We didn't use any of that water in water year 2020. So finally, this is going to be the recommendation that goes to council and on January 26th, and that's that council approves and adopts the City of Santa Barbara Water Supply Management Report for the 2020 water year, finding that the groundwater resources are in long-term balance in accordance with the conjunctive management element of the city's long-term water supply plan. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Corey. Thank you for a very informative and very well presented report. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember Sneddon.
Thank you so much. Just a really quick comment that this is my favorite presentation of the year when this one comes up, and it's so comprehensive and thorough, and really that we're even able to ask these detailed questions is a sign of how complete this report is in its detail. And so I really want to thank you for that, because it allows public discussion and for us to really know where we are. And I really appreciate it. It's just a beautiful presentation, and thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
I just wanted to compliment staff again, as Councilmember Sneddon did. Really good report, Ms. Corey. I really did appreciate it. Well presented. And if Mr. Chair, if you're ready, I'd like to make a motion to accept staff recommendation, make that recommendation to council.
Yes, I'm ready. Do we have to have public comment before? Just a quick question.
Yes.
Do we have any comments from the public?
I don't see anyone raising their hand, so we don't have any public comment at this time.
Okay, well, thank you for, go ahead, Commissioner Davis.
Okay, so I'd make the motion for staff recommendation, make the recommendation, staff recommendation to the city council.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kilborn?
Yes.
And Chair Keller?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks again for a very informative report. Okay, so we are moving on to our second item, the sale of excess recycled water to La Cumbre Mutual Water Company. Mr. Hagmark?
Mr. Chair, we'll dive right in with Mr. Hamilton here.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, council members Sneddon, Malcolm Hamilton, Water Resources Financial Officer in the division, here today to present on the recycled water agreement that we have negotiated with the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company. Great, so today in the presentation, I'll be going over 4 main items. We'll go over the background, a little bit about the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company, the timeline of how we got to today and what we're looking forward to in 2021, 2022. I will go through some of the key provisions of the recycled water agreement that we've negotiated. Almost all of them were also covered in your staff report in detail. We'll wrap up with the benefits to the city and also, of course, to the water company, and then look at the recommendation that we're asking from council. So taking a look at the water company, they were formed almost a century ago as a mutual water company. Today, they have about 1,500 service connections and serve customers in the Hope Ranch area. So if you look at the map on the right side of the slide here, you'll see kind of in green is the city of Santa Barbara service area. In orange, which is not labeled, is actually the Goleta Water District area. And then La Cumbre Mutual here in the Hope Ranch area. On the north, they're somewhat bordered by Hollister Avenue and Modoc. And then it encompasses the La Cumbre Country Club, which juts out to the right, and then all of Hope Ranch for the most part. Today, the water company's supplies come from the Gleta Water District through wholesale purchase. They have a state water project water that's delivered through the city's distribution system, and we have a separate agreement for in that. They also, you had a lot of great discussion in just the previous presentation on recycled water and also groundwater. They are a pumper in the Foothill Basin, so we have some connectivity with them in an overlap in our part of water supplies. And then more recently, supplemental water purchases, and specifically what I'm referring to there is the sale of potable water from the city to Lacuma Mutual backed by the desal plant. So looking at the timeline of negotiations, this kind of goes back just about 5 years now. Starting in January of 2016, the city received a formal request from the water company to enter into negotiations for recycled water. Soon after, in February, the city responded and council authorized staff to begin negotiations. Now, throughout most of 2016, we negotiated early term sheets and other provisions of the agreement, but ultimately, starting in 2017, negotiations were halted. We had an ongoing drought of record, which demanded a lot of resources from the city side. So we weren't quite able to give the attention we'd like to the negotiations with the water company. But additionally, the recycled water plant wasn't quite producing at its design capacity. And so plant optimization was still occurring, and we felt it was best to halt negotiations at that time. Going forward a couple years in 2019, we saw on both of those conditions some improvement. So in April 2019, council adopted a stage 1 drought condition, which was a pullback from a stage 3. And then in December of 2019, we did some stress testing, so to speak, on the plant, the recycled water plant, and was able to have it produce at its design capacity. And you've talked a little bit about that capacity, but we'll talk more later in the presentation about the demands on it. So going into 2020 in true 2020 form, we resumed negotiations entirely through video conferencing, and we did those starting in the early part of the year and continued all the way up through early November. In November, so just before Thanksgiving, the water company actually took action and voted to accept the terms of the agreement, the ones that I'm laying out today. We're here today, December 2020, with the Water Commission. Going into 2021, we'll be at City Council on January 26th with a recommendation to approve the agreement. After that takes place, the water company will begin to construct some facilities to convey the recycled water to their properties. And ultimately, we would anticipate commencement of deliveries to occur sometime in the first half of 2022. So taking a look here at the guiding principles of the agreement and how that laid the framework for everything else to come is, of course, but this is an important point with the operation of the plant. This is an agreement for the sale of recycled water. And really what we wanted to emphasize there was the city's position, and ultimately what's in the agreement is the city retaining the discretion to manage its water supply. So both the potable, as you heard, there's a little bit of a potable water supplement to the system, and of course our recycled water supplies to the benefit of our customers. As well, the agreement should, and it does, provide economic benefits to the city's ratepayers. We wanted to promote regional cooperation among agencies, particularly in the preservation of potable water supplies. And as we mentioned, it does reduce demand on a shared groundwater basin, so the Foothill Basin. The city is selling in this agreement surplus recycled water supply or excess recycled water supply. The source of that supply is the city's recycled water plant, and we have agreed for the term of the agreement to have that plant produce at a capacity that enables this transaction. The current design capacity of the plant is 2.5 million gallons per day, or 2.5 MGD. what I'm going to show you in a chart just after this, the peak demands that we've seen in the last year, the year prior, was 2 MGD. So you do some simple math on our highest demand day in 2019. We serviced 2 million gallons of recycled water. We have a capacity of 2.5, so there's an excess capacity of about a half MGD at any given time. The water company, per the agreement, is limited to a maximum daily take of 250,000 gallons, or 0.25 million gallons. So this takes a look at some data we had readily available from calendar year 2019, looking at several different types of demand statistics from the recycled water system from January through December. All of the demands here, again, are in MGD. So it's a little less than what you typically see in terms of acre feet, but let me walk you through these lines here. And Mr. Hagmark, did you want to jump in before we do that?
No, please go. Please.
Okay. Starting at the bottom with the blue line, so this represents the lowest demand day in each of these months. The gray line here is the average of all days across each month. And then finally, in orange, what you see is the peak demand day in each of these months. So if you scoot over to August, and I think I have control here of this. So you're looking in August, our kind of highest demand month. On our highest demand day, it was 2 MGD. And then across the top, what you see is a red line representing the design capacity on any given day of the recycled water plant. And then for visually, I've just shaded the area between the max demand in any given month and our design capacity. So it's pretty evident from this chart that we of course have capacity, as we talked about in the previous presentation, in our winter months, but even at our peak demand day in our highest demand month, we still have excess capacity to sell to the water company.
And I was just going to point out that the blue area there kind of basically captures the excess capacity that we have available. And it's really trying to figure out what we can do with those shoulder seasons to try and boost reduce usage of recycled water.
Thank you. The term of the agreement, or the initial term of the agreement, is 25 years. After that point, it would automatically extend for 1-year periods, contingent on the approval of each agency. There is an important provision in here related to potable reuse, which is after December 31st, 2034, the city has the right to terminate the agreement if we choose to use the recycled water in the production of potable reuse. This 2034 date and in or around that year is becoming quite important for the city. It coincides with many of our retail recycled water agreements within the city, so they are also terminating, I believe, in 2034. And additionally, the SRF loan comes to maturity for the desal plant just a few years after 2034. So we've structured it so that the city, if it chooses to pivot to potable reuse, will be able to terminate this agreement, and will also simultaneously be putting behind it principal and interest payments for the desal plant. So the water company, per the agreement, may order a minimum of 40 acre feet a year and a maximum of 100 acre feet a year. Now, to accept those deliveries, and I'll show you some maps in the next couple of slides, 2 things need to happen. First, the water company will need to pay for the installation of a new meter, valves, and meter vault, which will become the delivery point. And additionally, they'll also need to pay for and oversee the construction of facilities, really a new recycled water main in the city's right of way to deliver the recycled water to their property and thereafter. This is a map of our current recycled water system. The purple lines here are represent the existing water, recycled water mains, and then the shaded green sites are largely captures all of our users. If you look off to the left-hand side of the map, what you'll see is that the recycled water system main that extends into Hidden Valley kind of terminates a little bit south of the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company service area. And so there needs to be an extension of the conveyance system to their service area, for which that they'll pay for. So I'll zoom in a little on this next map, just to orient everyone here. So this is just an aerial imagery of Calle de los Amigos and Torino Drive in the Hidden Valley area. If you look in the top right, you see what is like a pink line coming down Torino Drive and turning up Calle de los Amigos. This is the city's existing city recycled water main, and so it terminates currently partially up that Calle de los Amigos. The delivery point will be paid for and will be installed roughly in the location that I've identified here. This is an important point. This is the point at which La Cumbre Mutual takes responsibility for the water and it becomes theirs. And then that purple line is the new pipeline that will need to be constructed, traveling north on Calle de los Amigos and then turning and tying into the La Cumbre Country Club's conveyance facilities, and then it will go onto their property thereafter into to a reservoir. Okay, so in terms of delivery management, a few things I want to point out here. One of which is the city's water distribution superintendent will have the authority to determine the daily flow regime for the water company. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the water company cannot exceed 0.25 MGD on any given day, but the superintendent may determine at different times that different delivery schedules are necessary, and the city retains that authority. Secondly, there are of course instances where the city would be excused from delivery. For instance, if there is a plant malfunction and the plant goes down, we're not able to produce the recycled water, we would pause the agreement and not be required to deliver to the water company. And a really important point as well for the city in this agreement is that we may pause the agreement to preserve our own potable water supplies. As you know, at different times, although it's infrequent now, the recycled water system is supplemented with potable water, and the city may determine that there are insufficient potable water supplies to put into the system and deliver those to the water company as part of this agreement.
Quick question. So if the water distribution superintendent determines that we have excess capacity, we can sell more temporarily, is that also is an option or not an option if they need, or they? We have this as a cap. The cap is more in terms of our commitment, not necessarily what we could deliver if necessary, no? If we had capacity.
Correct, Chair Keller. In the agreement right now, it's pretty clear that their maximum daily take is 0.25 MGD. However, I'd imagine if the distribution superintendent determined there was, more than that, that we could make an agreement on individual days.
Yeah, let me kind of clarify some of this. This is really an operational thing. And where it may get, like, just as an example, there may be a period of time where it makes more sense for them to take that 250,000 gallons in an 8-hour period or a 24-hour period. And so we're kind of reserving this. This really doesn't speak to the ultimate, total delivery per year, assuming this agreement does work out well. And I think we'd be open potentially to selling more water if there was additional needs. I think the golf course uses about 150 acre feet a year. So potentially there's an additional agreement in the future, but this is right here is specific to just operational things, day-to-day demands on the system, and wanting to make sure that we don't, they don't take too much water at one time and leave our customers kind of stranded. So, yeah.
Understood. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so the wholesale price should look familiar because it's has a similar structure to our in-city retail customers, but there's three components to it. There's a monthly fixed fee, a volumetric charge, and an administrative fee. The monthly fixed fee is really intended to capture costs that are related to the construction and ongoing maintenance of our capital facilities. So initially they'll pay $5,673 per month or billing period. And then each year thereafter, that fee will increase by 3%. We will add to that the volumetric charge. So it's currently $4.40 per HCF. And that is just the city's adopted recycled water rate. So as the city goes through rate studies and adjust the recycled water rate, so too will the rate to the water company be adjusted. And then third, there is a certain amount of staff time and administration involved in operating the recycled water system, and we will be recuperating a portion of that, a 15% charge for the city's time. So looking at the benefits to the city and also the water company, but first for the city, we will begin receiving approximately $155,000 annually in 2022 when we anticipate the commencement of deliveries. It's important to note that the $155,000 is the minimum amount the city will receive, because regardless of whether or not the water company takes water, they have to pay based on 40 acre feet. So for instance, if they don't take water in a year, they will still pay the city as though they accepted 40 acre feet that year. So there is kind of a floor or a minimum revenue that the city will receive in any given year. If they choose to maximize their deliveries under the agreement at 100 acre feet, the revenue to the city would be approximately $290,000 currently, and of course it will go up over time. But putting that in perspective right now, a 1% rate increase for our rates is about $500,000. And so, 290 would be just over about a half percent rate increase, which is great for the city, because over time this revenue will make a significant impact in the pressure on rates, and so they will be lower than they would be otherwise without this agreement. Secondly, if we're producing more water at the recycled water plant, we would anticipate that the unit cost of recycled water either goes down or is less than it would be otherwise. So by keeping that rate down, we kind of continue to have an incentive for our customers to use recycled water as an alternative to our potable water supplies. Again, for the city, we retain full discretion to operate the recycled water plant to the benefit of our customers, which is really important to the city to have that flexibility. We, in a regional sense, are reducing demand on potable water supplies, including that groundwater, that foothill basin, and we are promoting cooperation among neighboring agencies. And then finally, and we talked about this a little just in the previous presentation, it reduces treated wastewater discharges to the ocean. So I believe this is my final slide here. We are recommending that council introduce and adopt an ordinance that approves the agreement and the long-term sale of recycled water to the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company. Again, that's January 26, 2021, that will be going to City Council.
Chair, commissioners, I'm really excited to bring this to you today. I mean, it's something we've been working on for a while, and we really appreciate the leadership at the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company and Country Club who've been involved in this conversation. And I really do think this is one of those opportunities for a win-win-win. And with that, I would like to open up, if you're okay, Chair Keller, to Alex Rodriguez, who is I believe the president of the Lincolnwood Mutual Water Company. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Keller, Council Member Sneddon, commissioners and staff. My name is Alex Rodriguez. I'm the president of the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company Board of Directors. And before I begin, I'd like to congratulate my old friend, Commissioner Davis, on being elected Vice Chair of the Water Commission. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to address the Commission this morning. On behalf of the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company Board of Directors, I would like to thank city staff and our general manager for their efforts in making this agreement a reality. The city and the La Cumbre Mutual Water Company have had a great working relationship for many years, and this recycled water project is a testament of a public-private partnership towards a beneficial use of recycled water. The agreement reduces potable water needs, as Mr. Hamilton mentioned, and protects the environment. The La Cumbre Country Club is one of the largest water users in our service area, and this project will reduce the amount of potable water needed for the golf course while preserving a precious resource. Thank you again for your time, and I believe Mike Alvarado, our general manager, is available if you have any questions for him. Thank you. Dave, good seeing you.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other comments, questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to see you, Mr. Rodriguez. Alex, it's been a while. It's good, really good to see you. I strongly support this project, and the outline of benefits there, Mr. Hamilton, was really well spoken. I do have one question, and it's just a minor what if. The termination provisions you have in there basically terminates in 2034 if we're needing to go to potable reuse. Just the hypothetical, I go back, 14 years, 2006, we're talking about clean energy as CCE and 100% renewable, and everybody's going like, that's a pipe dream. What if potable reuse becomes available sooner than that and the city within the next decade moves forward? Do we have a provision here to supply the same amount of water a different way if in fact the city wanted to move and have to use the distribution line to get up to Cater for a new potable reuse system? That makes sense?
Yes, it does, and I'll take a shot at this. Mr. Hackman may want to jump in. Chair Keller, Commissioner Davis. There are also other termination provisions in the agreement, whereby if the city needs to terminate the agreement, we first need to agree to meet in good faith with the water company to seek a solution for the supply. So there is also that included in the agreement.
Good. That's what I had assumed. I had not seen that spelled out, but I would assume that essentially we want to supply the water, whichever way we can, and going forward in that regard. So anyway, thank you for that.
Sorry, Chair.
And I would just add, I mean, again, these were just conversations that we've had, but I do know that La Cumbre, should we pivot in the future, I think they would be potentially a candidate to be part of the potable reuse project. Right. It could be a regional development of that supply as well. We share a lot with the Mutual Water Company. We treat their state water for them. And, I think I'd like to say we have each other's back when it comes to making sure that our customers are provided the best service.
Great. Thanks for that answer.
In the future, it may still make sense to produce two types of water. I mean, for example, Orange County Water District produces different grades of reclaimed water for different customers. Some of them are industrial and others. So that's something that we could keep in mind, that we don't have to convert everything to the potable. I mean, it's a choice that we can make, and we'll make that when we get there. But
yep, I was making a comment just on basis that at least the previous studies we had, we needed to take that pipe, the purple pipe goes out there, reconvert it to a conveyance to get up to Cater for the potable reuse. But
yeah, right.
Just upon that concept is where I was going.
Understood. Thank you very much, Jim. Councilmember Sneddon.
Thank you. I just also want to voice my support for this and really commend Mr. Hagmark and staff and Mr. Rodriguez and the La Cumbre Mutual for working this out. It is truly beneficial for both and does give us an outlet for the recycled water, and just wanted to voice my support of this. And it's taken a long time to work this through, and they've really considered all of the details.
Do we have any public comment? Other public comment?
Chair Keller, there is no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So do we have a motion for the recommendation?
I move staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kilborn,
Yes.
and Chair Keller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I think this is a great decision for the city. And thank you again for Mr. Hagmark, Mr. Hamilton for making this happen. Okay, so we are on to our item number 8, the Water Resources Management Report. Mr.
Yes. Chair, Commissioners, just a little bit of business here. Just wanted to go over this. We sent this out to you this week. I don't know if there's any specific questions in here of interest. I think for the commission was our, let's see, wanted to touch on wastewater. We did have 2 spills since we last met. And both of them seem to be one of those frustrating ones. I think debris, foreign debris plugging a manhole that caused one of the spills, and the other one is still under investigation. Another one I wanted to point out was just wastewater flows for the year. I just find this remarkable. We didn't even break 6 MGD on average for this year, which is quite remarkable. And at some point I'd like to come back, because I want to say in 2010, we were consistently treating about 8 million gallons a day. So continues to be a strong effort by the community to continue to conserve. Obviously, this also reflects the pandemic, and I think the loss of our commercial and hotel activity, but these are some incredibly low flows for the community. Lots of interesting information in our wastewater. As you also noted, the email I shared with you, again, we're still trying to comprehend what that means, but we are tracking the COVID RNA in our wastewater. Again, public health has not been interested in that data yet, but I think it's contributing ultimately to the community's understanding. But it is certainly showing and following what we're seeing in the testing, where we're seeing spikes, increasing community clusters, and we're also seeing that showing up in our wastewater as well. So we'll continue to track that, and hopefully there'll be some breakthroughs in how that may be more helpful in helping to influence public health decisions.
Commissioner Young? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is interesting to me because the El Estero influent flow, I take it, has nothing to do with exterior landscaping use of water. This is water just going through the sewer collection system coming into El Estero. And so this reflects a decrease in domestic water use in our structures across the city, domestic and commercial. What drives that? I mean, some of this is pre-COVID. When I look at January, I think January, February, we weren't really in the throes of social distancing. I thought that happened in March. So
well, January, February, you might recall, was dry. We do get a bit of I&I in the winter that sometimes can drive up that average flow into the wastewater treatment plant. In January, February were pretty dry for us. So that was likely a contributing factor there. And then of course the pandemic kicks in, and the loss of our commercial and industrial activity has been significant. However, we are seeing increased residential water usage. As you can imagine, more people are home, more water usage in the home. But overall, we're seeing a reduction in wastewater flows.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that, for the sending out that thing on tracking of the COVID through the wastewater. I was thinking about it. I was going to bring it up today, and boom, there it was in my inbox. I think it, for me, I'm interested if, again, as long as we're in this crisis of pandemic, seeing a monthly report and just tracking as it goes, I would be very interested in just seeing that, regardless of whether public health has found a use for it. I did see a really in-depth report on PBS the other day that the Boston area is trying to use it to basically see where spikes are coming, because apparently, and again, and you've reported this, it spikes in the wastewater before you see it in the hospitals. And so other areas are doing that. And again, I'm just personally as a commissioner interested, as long as we're in this pandemic era, seeing a monthly report, just taking that graph that you have and seeing how it plays out. But thank you so much for putting it in there. I think it's very informative.
Yeah, one of the things that we're working on, we really want to get public health on board, because what I would hate to do if we did make it part of it is somehow we're saying something different than what the testing or, you know, I just want to get on the same page, and we haven't had the time to really sit down and have that conversation with them. And so I think once we're on the same page with them, and there isn't any mix, especially these days, I don't want any mixed communications out there in the public, then I think I'd be happy to start making it more part of this regular manager's report.
Great, that would work for me. Thank you very much.
Okay. I just want to give you a quick update on the Lincolnwood Mutual Water Company. So last month we held a public meeting and went through, let me back up, I guess. So the Lincolnwood Mutual Water Company is a small water company located on Upper State Street that encompasses about 60 properties. They had 2 groundwater wells, one of which has failed due to contamination, and they were seeking to drill a new well in the city. And as you may recall, we have a moratorium on drilling new wells. We also have an agreement with this water company that at any time in the future, the city could take them over. So we've taken this opportunity to have a conversation with them about whether or not this is the time that the city should take over that water company, or do we go to council and allow them to drill a new well. And so we've negotiated 2 options that work for staff, and we think they're fair to the rest of city water customers. And we presented that along with the board president, to their company shareholders, and they will be voting on that in January. Assuming the votes come in, we anticipate having an item for Water Commission in February to consider, and then we'll take that on to council for an ultimate decision. But I just wanted to give you an update on that in case there was any conversation that's come up out of that. And then I would like to, before we get to our last item here, I would like to just quickly introduce our new water commissioner who will be joining us in January, Lindsay Cooney, who is on, there she is. I just wanted to welcome her to the Water Commission, and we're excited to have a new voice on the commission, and filling Megan Burney's old seat. So welcome. Oh, you're on mute.
As if I don't Zoom every day, but yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited to jump on and, be a part of the Water Commission. Just learning a lot right now, and don't have a lot to add to the conversation at the moment, but look forward to being able to.
I will be in touch to set up an orientation. We'll be doing something before the January meeting. So
fantastic.
All right.
Welcome on board.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations, Lindsay.
And
congrats. Welcome to the commission.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we're gonna have fun.
Great.
all right. And with that, I wanted to turn our attentions to recognizing Commissioner Kilbourne's last meeting. and thanking him for his many years of service. Starting in 2013, he seemed to have the drought radar like I did, and joined just when things are getting interesting.
That's right.
So on behalf of the city and Water Resources staff, we want to thank you for your service to the Water Commission. Your tenure on the commission spent a very challenging time for our water resources, and your input and leadership have made a difference. I kind of went through and started highlighting some of the things that the commission has taken up over that period of time, and it's quite remarkable. I'm just going to hit on a few of those. We had obviously the reactivation of the Charles E. Meyer desalination plant. That was significant conversation. There was a lot of issues to work through, and it was really, really remarkable and in a fast pace, we were working through that. Obviously, the navigation of this new drought of record, the search for supplemental water, oh my God, the monthly water updates and water supply discussions that we had, it was just exhausting. Talking about demand management, outreach, water rates, and just the local politics of a drought was just intense. You're here for the renaming of El Estero to reflect the future of the facility. As a shining example of sustainability, looking to, focus more on how water, energy, and nutrient recovery will be done in the future. You've also helped guide us through extensive upgrades at El Estero, work on the secondary improvements. I believe you were here when the cogen facility was brought online. Fog receiving station, upgrades to the recycled water treatment plant. I guess the evolution of the sewer lateral inspection program, which continues. You've been through the enhanced urban water management plan that we're hopefully getting to the end of. You were instrumental in helping the city reach its goal of reducing its water use by 20% by 2020. That was a big task, and then helping to increase the water main replacement from 1% to 2% in response to just the aging infrastructure we have, and really appreciate your insight as an engineer and just the need for infrastructure investment. Drilling new wells, the 50-year agreement with Montecito, the La Cumbre deal today, collection system upgrades that have been done. I mean, to go from more than 30 spills a year down to hopefully we'll end this year with 2 potable reuse feasibility studies, the COVID pandemic. It's been a wild, a wild few years. And I just want to share my appreciation for all that you've given to help us tackle these complex issues, balancing social, environmental, and economic impacts in this extremely difficult time. And with that, I would like to just take the time to read this proclamation from the mayor. Let's see, my vision is failing me. Can't zoom in on this real quick here. Let's see. It is my pleasure to recognize Michael Kilborn for his dedication while serving on the Water Commission. Michael, you are appreciated for providing guidance and recommendations to the City of Santa Barbara's Public Works Water Resources Division on many major upgrades to water and wastewater infrastructure, with creating water policy and strategies, and with developing and securing additional water supplies during the city's historic drought of record. Your efforts have been invaluable to the community and the region. Your willingness to share your civil engineering expertise, along with your notable commitment of time and energy, have been tremendous service to both the Water Commission and the city. We congratulate you on your well-earned retirement. Thank you for your outstanding service to the city of Santa Barbara and its residents. And we wish you success in all your future endeavors. Signed, Kathy Murillo. With that, I want to turn it over to Chair Keller and the commissioners.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hagmark. Well, I've been here only 2 years, so a little bit over 2 years with the commission, but I really wanted to thank you, Michael, Vice Chair Kilborn, for all your help. And really, I thank you not as a chair, but really as a citizen of the city of Santa Barbara. I think, the service that you have provided is outstanding, and that's something that we all should be looking forward to. So thank you very much. And I think I would like to pass it on to Commissioner Davis, who has been here the longest and could probably speak more clearly about this. So, Dave?
Thank you. I've been here the longest, other than Michael. Michael, I just, again, personally wanted to thank you for your service, but more than that, you were here when I came on the commission. And again, we do learn from our elders, and you were here previously, and I really learned a lot. And again, your technical expertise, I personally will really, really miss. So I hope you, again, stay involved, and I'll see you in the community and we don't lose touch, because I've truly enjoyed serving with you. Best of luck in everything you do.
Appreciate that.
Anyone
Yeah,
else?
it's been,
Commissioner? Anyone? Yes,
Oh,
Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, Mike, I'm the newbie of the four of us at this point and just came on in January. And so unfortunately, COVID hit very soon thereafter, and I got to spend the least amount of time with you in person.
True.
So
Yeah.
that's a disappointment to me. But your absence will be felt, and even by myself. And I do want to thank you for your many, many years of service. I think government works at its best when good, competent people volunteer and come from the community to put their 2 cents in and to spend unpaid time trying to make things better. And so as a citizen, not as a water commissioner, as a citizen, I thank you for your years of service.
Thanks.
All right. And when all this is over, let's get together and have a beer to celebrate.
Definitely. I'll brew it.
All right. Very good. Okay. Well, again, thank you very much. Do you want to say anything, Michael?
I just want to thank everybody here, all the commissioners and staff and council members. And it has been fun. It's been an interesting 7 years. And just hearing Joshua go through all those projects, it's like, wow. Definitely did a lot. And
wow.
yes, I did jump in at quite an interesting time. So, but it's been fun, and it's been a learning experience, and it's been challenging at times. And but I did enjoy my experience here, and who knows, maybe down the road I'll find the time to rejoin. And
Okay, great.
But I know, Water Resources Division's in good hand. Joshua, you and your team do amazing things, and have pushed through so many great projects. And I know that the future of the city's well prepared for anything that's thrown at it. We went through a pretty tremendous drought recently, and knowing the way things are going, we're not gonna, or we will probably see another drought like that again. But I think we're going to be much better prepared and more resilient in the future for anything that's thrown our way. So I just want to commend you and your staff. You have a great team of individuals working together there to do amazing things. So appreciate the time on the commission, and I will definitely see you guys around.
So we did give Commissioner Kilborn a basket. I don't know if he has it nearby, but
got my basket right here.
Kind of hoping you might open up and show us some of the stuff we put in there. We've got a lot of water resources swag, but that you can go through it. We have some fun gifts.
Waiting to open it, so let me dive into it here. Alrighty. Looks like a lot of snacks, some city swag. Nice.
Oh, there you go. That's well worth it.
Look like I can go clean some sewers now. Snacks, tote bag.
All right.
Some cookies. I should have opened these earlier. I could have eaten them. And looks like some magnets and stuff. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
There should be an envelope in there. We were hoping it didn't quite come through today. We wanted to get you a street sign. So we have a Kilborn Way street sign that's coming your way on the city's
awesome
street
yeah,
sign.
what did I do with that? There was an envelope in here, and now I've lost it. So
okay. Anyway, so that's coming too. But
yes, here, let me open this. Okay, awesome. Got it.
Great.
Yeah. So
Super.
yeah, we should have that for you shortly.
Cool. Very cool. Yes, I'll come pick it up when it's ready. Let me know.
All right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
And good
thank
luck
you for
in
your service.
2020.
All right, great. So, well, thank you everybody for this meeting, for the last meeting of this year, and we'll be in touch. Our next meeting will be in January. Okay.
Yeah.
Chair Keller?
Chair Keller, I think there's someone who wants to speak.
Yes,
Public
please.
comment.
Oh, public comment. Yes, please. Sorry.
Okay, let's see here. Hillary Hauser would like to make a public comment. Hillary Hauser, I have unmuted you. You are self-muted. Ms. Hauser, you can unmute yourself. There we
Oh,
go.
did anything come across?
We can hear you now.
Nope.
I am
Go ahead.
so sorry, you guys. I really am sorry. And thank you
No worries.
very much for letting me have a little time. And congratulations, Michael, on your retirement. And I appreciated this comment. I pushed my little hand to speak on the last issue and my whole machine fell on the floor and disconnected me. So I don't know if that's a sign. But as Commissioner Davis mentioned, you know, some of us have been around so long that we have some knowledge that hopefully will get passed on. We've been working on this many years. And basically, I would really like to see if it's possible that the Water Commission itself, maybe in its next coming meeting on the Urban Water Management Plan, could deal with an issue. The language there for me, opposing statements about recycled water. This is recycled water on the broken record on the recycled water. Yet somewhere we read, you know, nobody wants it, it's too expensive, you know, and then and so forth. So when we talk about potable reuse, the expense of getting to potable reuse is huge. Have we compared it with the expense of upgrading from secondary to tertiary? I mean, have we discussed those numbers? Potable reuse being way off when we're in the middle of a drought. At your staff report, bottom page 3, there's a 0.5 million gallon overage. That's a lot of gallons of water. It's like 182.5 million gallons per year that's going out to sea. So will potable reuse produce that much potable? If we are upgrading to tertiary and using recycled water, we are reversely making potable water. And I'm out of time, but I think a plan to coordinate with Montecito is really important, that we are giving them desal to make potable water to water the cemetery does not make sense. So I would like a special meeting to go over the exact where we are on recycled water. It's good. It's good. It's expensive to upgrade, but you know, the different conversations about it through these various venues don't, for me, mesh. And so I would appeal to the commission if we could have maybe a special meeting to just talk about recycled water and this resource that is still going out to sea, and how to get it together in one piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hauser. We really appreciate your support and comments from, you keep us on our toes with all these issues. We did talk a little bit about recycled water, and one thing that we did mention in today's meeting was that we should bring this to an item in the future, in the near future, to talk about what could we do, what opportunities, what are the challenges for those opportunities, and what we should do. So I think we certainly will keep that in mind in the coming meetings. Mr. Hagman, do you want to say anything more?
No, I think you captured it.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, Vice Chair Kilmer, thank you very much again for your service. And thank you everybody for being here for this meeting. And we'll see you in January. Stay safe and happy holidays.
Thank you.